उसका कमरे में काम करके उसकी इसकी बनाते थे स्क्रिप्ट। उस ज़माने में वो पिक्चर बनी अंदाज़, हाँ, जिसमें राजेश खन्ना था, ज़िंदगी एक सफ़र है सुहाना, जो
ब्लॉकबस्टर फिल्म।
सुपर हिट गाना था वो था। और उस ज़माने में बनी है सीता और की गीता बनी है। हाँ, उस ज़माने में ये ऑफिस में जो बनी थी स्क्रिप्ट उनमें से ही है।
सलीम साहब, ये बताइए मुझे, आपने कहा कि
Hello and welcome to a very special edition of India Global. I am Gauri Dwivedi and this is a show that talks about a very tragic and unfortunate number. 1,000 days of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. A war that has wreaked havoc on Ukraine. In fact, it has split international opinion on the genesis, origins of the war, put Global South in the very spotlight of any possible peace settlement efforts. The economic costs of this conflict have been felt not just by Europe but by every major economy due to the rising energy costs that it led to. On 24th of February 2022, Europe awoke to its latest conflict, the biggest since the Second World War. It wasn't just a shot fired, the thunder shattered Europe and went on to divide the world. My colleague Arjun Mahindran brings you this report that tells you what really has happened, or rather what all has happened in the Russia-Ukraine war in the last 1,000 days.
With weapons stacked high and storm clouds of war on the horizon, Russian forces crossed Ukraine's borders. The Kremlin's message was simple: we're coming. And on that cold February morning, they did. The world reacted swiftly. Washington called it an unprovoked attack, promising swift sanctions and military aid. NATO reinforced its eastern flank, pledging support to Ukraine. Sanctions hit Russia hard, isolating it globally. As Russia's foreign minister spoke at the UN, about 100 diplomats led by Ukraine walked out in protest. Moscow's justification? A special military operation to protect Russian-speaking people. As bombs fell and cities crumbled, Ukrainian President Volodymyr Zelensky, with the weight of his nation on his shoulders, gave a heart-wrenching address to the US Congress. "We need you now," he roared, invoking Pearl Harbor and 9/11. The world rallied behind Ukraine, but Russia became a pariah. Then came the shock: Chernobyl and Zaporizhia nuclear sites captured by Russia. The world held its breath, fearing catastrophe, as the fighting closed in on these fragile landmarks. In the east, Donetsk became a battleground with Russian troops capturing large swaths of land. But reality set in. Russian forces struggled in thick mud during winter. Vehicles got stuck, soldiers froze, and casualties mounted. This was no easy war. Moscow was forced to pivot, and Russia's war machine began gaining ground once more. Behind the lines, Yevgeny Prigozhin, leader of the Wagner mercenary group, clashed with Russia's military brass, showing cracks in Putin's regime. Prigozhin's death in a plane crash raised more questions than answers. Desperate, Russia turned to China, Iran, and North Korea for arms, while the West tightened its grip. In a final parting gift to Kiev, President Biden allowed Ukraine to use long-range missiles inside Russia. The war escalated to a new, unpredictable phase. Enraged, Putin lowered the nuclear threshold. Ukraine's strikes on Russian soil pushed the conflict from conventional to catastrophic, teetering on the edge of a global powder keg. Meanwhile, US President-elect Donald Trump promises to come and finish this. But can one man really end the war? Or is it just another empty political claim? As the war rages on, lives are torn apart, borders redrawn, and global power dynamics shift. Will the world see peace, or will this conflict leave scars that may never heal?
All right, that really told you what all has happened in the 1,000-day war that unfortunately still continues. Now, NDTV has been at the forefront of covering this war throughout the 1,000-day period so far. We've been on ground zero. And take a look at some of these heart-wrenching ground reports that my colleague Vishnu filed from Ukraine's Borodyanka and Bucha regions that tells you the human side of what a war really does to people, to societies, to households.
Well, we are now in the town of Borodyanka. As you can see, there is widespread destruction all around. So we are actually going to go to one of the areas where we are told it's relatively safe to get to, because the worry is of landmines and things like that in this area. This is a housing complex, it's an apartment complex which has been completely destroyed by the Russians. And as we've been saying repeatedly, as they retreated, they planted landmines which have slowly been diffused by and large by the Ukrainians. But the reason I actually stopped over here is, Ashok, can you focus on that bear? This is obviously where a child once stayed. And it's a vivid sort of reminder of what actually took place over here. This is the mass grave which has been found in the small town of Bucha, which is on the outskirts of the Ukrainian capital Kiev. For the last couple of hours, my colleague Uma Shankar Singh and Ashok Mahalay and I have been witnessing these bodies being exhumed from this mass grave. 57 bodies at least have been found over here. And there is, the Ukrainians say, clear-cut evidence of the fact that many of these individuals were executed, their hands were bound, and they were found in that state dead. This mass grave, something identified also in satellite images, is approximately 40 feet long. There is a large process in the investigation which is now going to take place, with these bodies having been exhumed, and that process, as you can see behind me, continues.
Before we go any further, let's tell our viewers what really is the historical angst that Russia feels and how it has been justifying this war for the last 1,000 days. Why it feels that now it's NATO versus Russia. Well, it was originally supposed to be NATO versus Warsaw Pact. What has changed, and why Russia feels that history is on its side and it is justifying this war? Take a look at this report that puts the historical context of this war clearly.
As the 1,000-day-long conflict between Ukraine and Russia drags on, it's clear this is a war being fought between the 32-member military alliance NATO and Russia. The Second World War divided the world into two blocks, with each having a military alliance of its own. The Western Bloc was the first to form a military group called NATO, or the North Atlantic Treaty Organization. To counter NATO, the USSR and those in the Eastern Bloc formed the Warsaw Pact. Post the fall of the erstwhile USSR, the Warsaw Pact dissolved, but NATO stayed on and went on to induct most of those countries in USSR's camp. This is at the heart of the Ukraine-Russia conflict, as Russia feels NATO's eastward expansion since 1991 threatens it militarily and politically. Russia's invasion of Ukraine came after President Zelensky's repeated requests to join the military alliance. Ever since the Russian invasion in February 2022, NATO has expanded further, with Finland joining in 2023 and Sweden in 2024, giving fresh fodder to President Putin, who feels the addition of the 14 former Soviet-dominated countries in NATO is the primary cause of the conflict. Some evidence points to Western assurances to then-Soviet President Mikhail Gorbachev in 1990 that the alliance would not move an inch to the east, assurances that have not come through. But Russia has also gone back from its promise at the Budapest Memorandum on Security Assurances in 1994, where it said it would not use military force against Ukraine, Belarus and Kazakhstan, which led to Kyiv giving up its nuclear weapons. For Putin, at stake is Russia's former glory and the sphere of influence. For smaller European nations, it's about territorial sovereignty. The Russia-NATO dynamic took a sharp turn recently when the US approved Ukraine's use of long-range weapons inside Russia, reversing its policy. According to reports, Ukraine has already used these missiles, prompting a strong reaction from the Kremlin. Clearly, this war will end only with a political solution. Till then, the cycle of death, destruction, and despair will continue. Bureau Report, NDTV Word.
All right, we're going to slip into a very short break, but we come back on the other side and talk more about what next can happen in this war. And we've got voices from Europe, from Russia and India, given the role that India could play in any possible peace negotiations going forward. Stay with us. We come back and talk more on the other side of this break.
Shark Flex Style, the powerful hairdryer that's always just a twist away from a versatile multi-styler. For trying a new thing hair. For this used to take so long hair. For ready to rock the world hair. For embracing and loving this hair. Without extreme heat. Give the gift of gorgeous hair for all hair kind.
This is an important message for people living with diabetes from people living with diabetes.
When I was experiencing the symptoms of diabetes, I didn't know what was going on.
You go on the internet and it's full of horror stories. You don't know where to begin and you don't know what to believe.
I didn't understand about carbs, I didn't understand about blood glucose levels.
I was scared and I was worried.
I didn't understand diabetes full stop.
That's why the support I get as a Diabetes UK member is so important.
You can become a Diabetes UK member too. To join us now, just call 0800 144 5406 and become a member today for just £3 a month. When you do, you'll receive a practical guide specific to your type of diabetes and a copy of Balance magazine 4 times a year. Balance is filled with news and inspiring real-life stories from members just like you. And you'll receive regular emails and vital updates that will help you feel informed and supported. Plus, you'll help support research that could lead to better treatments for all types of diabetes.
Membership makes life better because you're not alone anymore.
Call 0800 144 5406 or go online to become a Diabetes UK member for just £3 a month, because membership can help you learn to live better with diabetes.
Unleash the power of hands-free lighting with Neck Bright from JML. The powerful and versatile wearable neck light. Easily adjust the direction or how bright you need the light. The lights are also detachable and the magnetic base lets you attach it to any metal surface, giving you the right light when and where you need it. Discover the ultimate hands-free lighting solution this Christmas with Neck Bright. Only $19.99 from Asda, Argos, Morrisons, Tesco and jmldirect.com. JML, your Christmas made easier.
We're finally going through my Tom's things. I want to make him proud.
Welcome to British Seniors, the UK's #1 rated provider of over 50s life insurance. We're proud to offer our seniors lifetime guarantee. With 100% of claims having been paid, we guarantee your premiums will never go up and that you'll speak to one of our specialists in the UK. Plus, when you sign up, you'll receive a £135 gift card.
Be proud to protect your loved ones with British Seniors. To get a free quote today, call our UK team or visit britishseniors.co.uk.
Welcome back. You're watching our special edition of India Global, focusing on the 1,000 days of the Russia-Ukraine conflict. What next can happen in this war? What are the possible options on the table when Donald Trump comes into Oval Office in 2 months from now? And what are the peace negotiations that India can possibly offer is what we'll try and deep dive into. All right, let me quickly now introduce the panelists. Joining me, Professor Salma Bawa, who's the chairperson of the Center for European Studies. Joining me from JNU, geopolitical analyst from Moscow, Sergei Strokhan, and Nicholas Swanstrom joining me live from Stockholm. He is the director of ISDP. In fact, Stockholm is one of the countries that joined NATO after the Ukraine-Russia conflict started. And in fact, Nicholas, let me start with you. As things stand right now, we are talking on a day when an intercontinental ballistic missile has been fired by Russia. And on a day when Ukraine has also gone ahead and fired the missiles, the long-range missiles that US finally green-lighted it to. Where is this war headed?
Well, it's heading to a very difficult position. I mean, we see an escalation from both sides that is definitely not leading to a long-term peace and or in the right direction. So I do think that it's we're facing well, further tension and a much more difficult situation to resolve over time.
And Sergey, let me then ask you this. You bring the view as far as Moscow is concerned. When we speak today, 1,000 days after the conflict, it looks like a possible solution is now much farther than what it was possibly when the quote-unquote 3-day military operation started.
Yeah, thank you for that question. But if you allow me just 30 seconds, I want briefly to respond a couple of observations over what I had in your preview report. Well, I can hardly agree that Russia has become a pariah state during this 1,000 years. Yes, the West has tried its level best to isolate Russia, but Russia has dramatically expanded its relations with non-Western world. China, India, Brazil, you've seen BRICS summit in Kazan last month. What isolation you are talking about? It's really laughable. I'm puzzled and who is writing those reports and why you disseminated that. However, let us not get involved in a blame game, as it's pretty tense and tough here now, absolutely.
It has been fired, right?
Yeah.
ICBM has been fired. So are you trying to tell me that this war is closer to a possible solution than what it was before?
No, what I suggest not to get involved in blame game and spreading, just cliche, ideological cliche. But of course, what is clear now that this conflict is coming to its climax. These days is coming to its climax, and probably the world has come to really very close to the threat of nuclear war. You see that Russia has unveiled its new nuclear doctrine, which dramatically expands the number of cases in which nuclear arms can be used. And well, as a sort of, I don't know how to describe it. Probably it's a provocation or defying Russia's doctrine. But anyway, you know that Ukraine has already launched those strikes using long-range missiles. Technically speaking, if we analyze the situation, it falls in line with Russia's nuclear doctrine, okay. And it enables Russia to respond with nuclear strikes. So everybody here, yesterday and today, people are asking what comes next. Are we going to make this strike or not? And believe me, it's pretty tense here. And
Mr. Stokan, I gave you more than 30 seconds, sir, uninterrupted. Yeah. But let me ask this to Nicholas, and then I get in Professor Bava as well. Nicholas, you heard what the view from Moscow is, which is that this war may be coming towards an end, not because of any other reason, but because the threat of a nuclear escalation is very real. How do you view this sitting in Stockholm, given the fact that your country has also moved into NATO in the last 2 years because it felt that that's the only way it can protect against Russian aggression?
Well, I think that proves that the Swedish decision, the Finnish decision was correct. We need to join NATO to defend our own security. And I think this is also why NATO is growing, because the Russian threat of nuclear attacks. But I mean, I do hope that there's a possibility to find, of course, I mean, Russia knows this as well. If they use nuclear weapons on Ukraine, even countries that are, well, like-minded or closer to Russia will, of course, react very, very strongly. So the nuclear option should not be an option. I do hope that there's a possibility to find a peaceful way out of this, even if I'm rather pessimistic, and I think it's going to take a long time. But the nuclear threat from Moscow is everything else than constructive.
Okay. Let me then bring in Professor Bawa on the fact that now when one talks about peace, one hears Global South and New Delhi that much more often, simply because of its ability to be able to have those communication channels live and robust. How significant are those communication channels, Professor Bawa, in being able to possibly even start a process with regard to peace?
I think when a war is on, one has to keep in mind that channels of communication always have to be kept open. Ultimately, a war in the most decisive way will only be concluded at a negotiating table. So I think to that extent, all parties will welcome any possibility of communication which will exist or which is available to them. That's point one. In the case of India, I think we are in a situation due to historical reasons and current engagements where we are able to talk to both sides, both to Russia and to Ukraine. And I think that is extremely significant in terms of being able to at least keep these channels of communication open. That's the second point. A third thing is on the role that one can play. A role depends both on what we can bring to the table, but also more importantly, one should not forget that it is the parties to war which will have to see whether they are willing to engage and have that.
No, they're willing to engage with India. They are willing to have India fill that kind of vacuum that exists in the global world order.
Absolutely. I think that the concerns India has brought the concerns of the global south, and what an extended war of 3 years means, not just to the two concerned countries, but it's a war which impacts globally. And I think in that extent, the concerns of the global south have been taken forward by Prime Minister Modi, to both the leaders in both the countries.
Yes.
So I think it is about conveying, first is about the sentiments and offering also whatever good offices the Prime Minister and India can bring to the table. So I think to that extent, it's extremely important in the light of the recent visit of the Prime Minister, both to Moscow and to Kiev.
Russian President Vladimir Putin is also set to be in India. Dates are yet to be announced, but the fact that he is going to be in India on a visit is also extremely important. Let me then bring in the two sides from Europe and Russia to essentially talk about the fact that there is going to be a change of guard in the US in about 2 months from now. Ahead of that, Nicholas, do you think it was wise and prudent on the part of US to allow Ukraine to use long-range missiles and attack deep inside Russian territory, giving further fodder to the Russian war machinery that the fact that they must respond to an act of aggression that they feel is elevated than earlier?
Well, I think that we should have allowed this a long time ago. I mean, we should have given the Ukrainians all the tools they deserve to have to defend themselves. I mean, we tend to forget that Russia attacked Ukraine, invaded a sovereign state. So for me, this is finally a moment then we can actually give the Ukrainians the tools. And as a European, I think that I'm looking forward to peace, of course, but not a peace on equal terms. So what we need to do is to support Ukraine against the Russian invasion.
When Donald Trump comes into Oval Office on 20th of January, some of these decisions that President Biden has taken will hold water then as well?
No, I think President Trump will change a lot.
Don't you think that will do more damage to Ukraine? This flip-flop?
It's not going to benefit Ukraine. I mean, as I said, we should have done this earlier. We should have done it a year ago, maybe, given an ability. But of course, hopefully this improves a bit of the Ukrainian positions if there will be a negotiation initiated by Trump.
All right.
So in that regard, it could be useful, but too late, I would say, if we gave them this possibility.
Okay, let me give one last word very quickly to the Russians as well. India has always been neutral. We want to stay that way. Very quickly, Mr. Sergey.
I'm quite disappointed with the comment of my Swedish colleague that Russia is involved in nuclear saber rattling. It's totally untrue. Let me repeat it once again. We are provoked. We were provoked yesterday, we were provoked today, and it looks like we would be provoked tomorrow. So what are the options for us? You guys are leaving no options for us. Please read again our new nuclear doctrine, which says that if we attack by a non-nuclear state, which is supported by a nuclear state, it gives us a chance, enables us to respond, and in a very strong way. Please read it.
Okay. On that note, I'm afraid I have to end this. And if this discussion is any indication of the fact that there is no possible solution in sight right now, unless it's a negotiated settlement. Thank you so much, all of you, for joining me on this very special broadcast. And thank you so much, viewers, for tuning in to this very special edition of India.
Move over Black Friday. At PlusNet, we always keep it pink because our great value lasts longer than just one day. Like full fibre, our fastest and most reliable broadband from just $25.99 a month. Switching to PlusNet is now easier than ever. That's a plus. And there's no activation fee. See how fast that wiggle is? We're even faster. Get our best price by coming direct. Offer ends 11th of December. Wiggle, wiggle, wiggle. Wiggle.
Get comfy this Christmas with Pillow Pad Fold Away from JML, the multi-angle viewing stand that makes any device easy to see, comfortable and hands-free. The plush microfiber ledge holds any device securely at the perfect viewing angle, and it comes with a handy storage compartment. It's a great gift for sofa surfers. Whether you're sitting, lounging or lying down, get the perfect view with Pillow Pad Fold Away. Only $19.99 from Asda, Boots, Dunelm, Tesco and jmldirect.com.
No child should suffer the torture of trachoma, but so many are in pain right now. Nananga's lashes have turned inwards. They rip and tear away at his eyes. Pomelo's sight could be gone forever. He's just 3 years old. Kofanga screams for his mother. His eyes are so infected that he can't even see her. For so many children in the world's poorest countries, trachoma is torture. It's a painful infection often spread by flies, and it's destroying children's eyesight. But it could be stopped if you help today by calling 0800 021 3925.